Good morning, guys. I am back. I have posted the answers to page 418. Some of those were a little tricky, so hopefully look those over and please see if you have any questions. Today we're just going to do some more notes. 5.2, more proving, okay? So your only assignment today is to check your homework from Monday and then take notes on these, okay? Basically, this is what we've been doing. They're just a little more tricky, okay? Let's look. First one we've got is cosine x over 1 minus sine x minus sine x over cosine x. And we need that to equal secant x. And one thing, guys, I've had a few ask me, yes, I drop these off. It doesn't matter. A lot of times, laziness, I start writing it like that. Okay? So that's just me being lazy. All right? Now, we need to smush this left side together. Okay? So we need to get a common denominator. Guys, it's both of these together would be the common denominator. So this side would be cosine times 1 minus sine x. And this side would be the same thing. Okay? Then you got to figure out what you multiplied to get the common denominator. This side we multiplied by cosine. We'll do that here. So then your new numerator is cosine squared. Over here we multiplied by 1 minus sine x. So you got to do that to the top. Okay? Then you distribute and you get sine minus sine squared. Okay? Everybody see that? Now we're going to smush it together. But guys, you got to pay attention. This is a minus. So our numerator becomes cosine squared minus sine minus a negative sine squared. So that turns into sine squared. And I'm going to leave this that. Because if you can cancel that, or you can cancel that whole thing. So I'm going to leave it as factors. Okay? Now, you guys, trig identity. Everybody see up top the cosine squared and the sine squared? Yep. And you get 1. So our top is 1 minus sine over cosine 1 minus sine. Okay? Now you can cancel the 1 minus sines, and you're left with 1 over cosine. And what is 1 over cosine? Secant. Okay? Again, some of these fractions get a little more difficult. Gotta remember common denominators. All right. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Trying to keep the workload not too crazy for you. These are tricky. Got a few trickies. Tricky ones we're going to do today. This next one is tricky. We've got secant x over sine x minus sine x over cosine x. And all that mess has to equal cotangent x. Now, obviously, guys, we got a lot to do on that left side, right? Okay? Couple different ways we can do this. Trying to think the best way. All right, we're going to switch everything into sines and cosines. So we've got this guy right here. This is a little trick, guys. I'm going to try to talk about it. Okay? That is secant. If you go back to our first day of this when we learned our reciprocal identities, secant is equal to 1 over cosine, right? So secant in the top is equal to cosine in the bottom. If I gave you cosine, wasn't that equal to 1 over secant? So cosine in the top is the same as secant in the bottom, okay? Again, I know that's confusing, but here, secant is in the top right now. Isn't that equal to 1 over cosine? So you can do reciprocals and all that. I'm just trying to show you a little bit of a shortcut, okay? So secant in the top is the same as 1 over cosine. So this is going to become that. Secant in the top became 1 over cosine, and then my sine was still on the bottom, okay? So when you guys hear me talk about that, I'm going to mention that. Like this is cosine in the bottom. If we wanted to, wouldn't that be 1 over cosine? And is it 1 over cosine the same as secant if we were, which we're not going to because we want to leave it sine and cosine. I will talk about that through the next few days of notes and such, but just kind of know what I'm talking about here. So right now, we're just leaving this side alone because it's already sine and cosine, okay? We need to get a common denominator. What would our common denominator be now, guys? Yep, sine cosine. I write it twice. You guys don't have to if you're good with common denominators, but a lot of you aren't. This already has it, so I got 1. What do you got to multiply this by to get to the common denominator? Yep, I'm still talking to you like you're sitting on my couch. Sine squared, okay? So now we combine our fractions. What is 1 minus sine squared up top? Cosine squared. And then sine over cosine is on the bottom. We can cancel out a cosine. So he's gone, and he's gone. And what is cosine over sine? Cotangent. Okay? So these are all the same rules and stuff we've been doing. They're just a little bit trickier. All right. Here's another one that's going to talk about reciprocal identities. We've got sine over cosecant plus cosine over secant, and we need to make it equal 1. Again, if we switch everything to sines and cosines, cosecant in the bottom, that's that. 1 over cosecant is the same as sine. So cosecant in the bottom is the same as a sine up top. So that becomes that. 1 over cosecant is the same as sine over 1. Okay? Same thing here. Secant in the bottom is the same as cosine over 1. Again, I know that's confusing, guys. I'm going to keep talking about it. But it's your reciprocal identities. Again, this technically is cosine over 1 times 1 over secant. Isn't that what that is? Okay? And then by our reciprocal identities, 1 over secant is equal to cosine. Okay? That's where I get this other cosine. Sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. Okay? Again, that's just a quicker way to simplify the reciprocal identities. Okay? All right. This one's a good one. Again, these are just meant to be harder, okay? So we've got 1 plus tan over 1 plus cotan is equal to sine over cosine. Okay? Lordy shmorty. So we want to make the left side look like the right, so let's put it into sines and cosines. Tangent is sine over cosine, and cotangent is cosine over sine. Okay? So first step. Now, in order to smush it together, because we're going to have to in order to make this side look like that, smush it together, we need a common denominator. Up top, our common, I'm going to cheat it right here because it's just a 1, guys. If this is cosine in order to add together, what's the top going to become? Cosine, right? Because cosine over cosine is 1. Down here, we need our common denominator to be sine, so that's going to make the top be sine over sine. Okay? Now we can add the top. It's cosine plus sine. I'm going to work this way. all over the common denominator. And here's my numerator. My numerator of my denominator. Sine plus cosine right here. All over that common denominator sign. Okay, it looks ugly, but it's going to clean up nice, guys. Some of you will shortcut this, but I like to show the steps. Multiply by its reciprocal. Sine over sine plus cosine. Whatever you do to the bottom, sine over sine plus cosine. Remember, sine plus cosine will be the same as cosine plus sine. The bottom is gone. All you're left with is that right now. What can cancel out? Guys, you cannot cancel things like that because of the plus. You got to cancel a whole group. Cosine plus sine can cancel out with a cosine plus sine. So all that's left is sine over cosine, which is what we needed to get. Okay? Oh, that was 4 examples, huh? Yeah, speedy P. All right. So, please take notes with these. Write them out. Please remember that reciprocal identities. That will help you. We do not have any homework today. I just want you to see these notes, and I want you to make sure you checked your homework. And please reach out if you have any questions. Tomorrow I will have a short worksheet, 5.2, and it'll just be practicing some of these. Have a great day.